Hey folks, this is Ben back with you in the Midwest Model Shop. Today is another episode of Shop Talks. I have not done one of these in quite some time. Those of you new to the channel who may not be familiar with this, this is just a kind of a quick update where I talk about things having to do with the Midwest Model Shop, models, the industry, etc. And I share a lot of my thoughts. So there's nothing other than me to watch. So feel free to set your phone down or your device and just listen. It's just me talking an audio type of thing. Okay, so where are we at? I've often thought about doing a state of the shop address, like a state of the union address type of thing. Only it just doesn't sound that cool, I think, after all. So I've opted just to not really do that, but we are gonna talk about what's going on, I guess, in the shop. Things are going really well. I cannot thank all of you enough on behalf of Nora and myself for the purchases that you've made at our website, themidwestmodelshop.com. It's really been encouraging. It's made a difference in our lives and what we do and how we run things around the house and in the shop. It's now part of our daily routine to process orders, handle emails, handle messages, run the printers, manage inventory. That's something I'm not very good at yet. I need to pay more attention. Boxes and supplies and shipping material and all those types of things have become part of our daily norm. Also, little freak out sessions too, like when we kind of got a pile of stuff over here. It's organized of the essentials that we need, but like I kind of do a just-in-time type of thing. For example, boxes. I like to say we've got a box of boxes today. Because we get a box in the mail, and in that box are folded up boxes that we use to ship our parts to you, and they come in packs of 25. And so I'll order 50 to 75 at a time, and that usually lasts quite a while. Like what happened to us the other week was we pulled out a box, we processed, fortunately, the last order for the day, and we realized we didn't have any more boxes. They're all gone. Sometimes I can get them the next day. Usually it takes 2 days. It was a little concerning. So we try to stay on top of those types of things. I've moved our printers. I have 5 printers now, 5 3D printers running. They're all the same manufacturer. I'm not going to share that just because people are always trying to... people want to know what you're doing and they want to copy and things like that. But I just have what works for me, which is another reason why I don't share the name of the printers that I have. They're a lot bit more expensive, the ones that I have, than what are readily available. If you're interested in 3D printing, it's very affordable to get into the hobby now and give it a try. There are some tricks, there are some tips, there are things that you need to know. One, for example, is you must be extremely patient. Extremely patient, because it takes hours to print something. And the taller it is, the more hours it takes, like 12, 15, 20 potentially. And if you have a failure during that time, if you have a power outage for some printers, you didn't support it correctly, your printer's going to fail and then you're out of luck. So there's a little bit of a learning curve. I have all the same printers though. Up until just recently I had 3, and then there was a sale, so I purchased, or no, there wasn't a sale, it was a discount coupon I got, so I bought a 4th printer, and then that company had a big sale, and I was like, oh, they're really giving a huge discount, I should probably buy the 5th one, even though I didn't have the intention of setting it up. So I did, came home, it was in the box for a little while, and I was like, well, I should pull it out and fire it up. I need to make sure it works. Everything's okay. So I did. I pulled it out, and it did just fine. And then I kind of set it down to the side, and we had to rearrange where things were at here in the Midwest Model Shop to incorporate what normally is termed a print farm. And I started thinking about it the other day. I've seen print farms. People have these rooms. They're very large, with rows and rows and rows of printers in them. And they fire them all up at once. They put their files in there that they need, and they start printing. and they get large volumes of product out the door very quickly this way. It's a print farm. I started looking at mine. I was like, do I really have a print farm? I think this is more of a print garden. It's little. So I tell Nora now, I said, she laughs because I tell people I have a print garden. That's what I have, because it's just 5 printers. But they're all in a row. They're all set up. Now, because they're all the same, I've had to do something to keep track of them. You can give them names digitally within inside of the software, but I had Nora use her Cricut and in a nice font print out these names to match this in the same type of sticker that's on the front, I guess. And I named each one. And I didn't know what to do at first, and I was collecting them slowly. So the first 4 I named after the Bismarck's gun. So I have Anton, Bruno, Caesar, and Dora over there. And they are 1, 2, 3, 4. Anton's the first one. Dora's the 4th one I've acquired. When that was done, I needed a name for the 5th printer. And one of the suggestions that I had was Eleanor. It was given to me by a friend online, and I thought that was genius. I'm like, ooh, I like Eleanor. Because right away I'm thinking of the Mustang from Gone in 60 Seconds. And then my wife suggested, what about using one of my grandmother's names? Both of them are no longer with us. And so those options were Doris and Adele. And Adele is on my dad's side, and Doris is my mother's mom. And so I started thinking about it, and my dad, whenever you bring up Doris, and I love my grandmothers both very much, it's his mother-in-law, right? He was always like, oh man, here we go. And, a while back, there was a hurricane, they named the hurricanes, and one of the hurricanes was named Doris. And my dad's like, that's appropriate, or she is wrecking the East Coast right now, So I thought, well, I've got a guitar project that's going on right now. Maybe I'll get a little neck truss rod cover, and I'll put Doris on that. It's a little more appropriate for guitar. I'll name my printer Adele. So that's what I've done for now. So we have 5 printers. It makes a huge difference in the shop. A lot of the smaller things that we're creating, I can print 3 on a build plate at a time. That means 15 come out very quickly. If we need even larger numbers, it's not a real big deal. I do have to strategize what I'm doing. Certain things that we print are our biggest items. The longest items, they take over 3 hours to print. And when I first started out and we first started doing this, that was a big deal because I only had 1 printer. So I'd print the cranes, the Titanic crane sets in 1/200 scale. They take 3 hours. That's a good example. I would print them. I'd come downstairs 3 hours later for 1 set and discover that there was a failure. So I lost 3 hours, and I've lost that print. With the cranes, fortunately, maybe something would survive, and so I would save those parts because they were just all pieced together to make you a set anyway. But if the whole thing failed, that was no good. The printers, once you get them set up, they run very efficiently. It took quite a while to dial them in. There was a period of time that I thought that I had dialed in my resin and all my settings just right, and that it was pretty much smooth sailing. And then I started, as the designs evolved, the items that we're producing, I started running into trouble with certain things. I didn't understand why I was having failures. So when you set up a printer, some of you may know this, there's a couple of test prints that you could do. And there's one out there, it's just a calibration test. It's basically a 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch square with a series of shapes on it. There's a ramp, and most importantly, there's a series of posts of various sizes, and next to it, the equivalent sized holes. And when you are dialing in your printer, there's a whole bunch of settings, but like lift speed, retract speed, your exposure is a big one, the exposure setting. There's a whole bunch of numbers. You could tweak those, and because this print's super small, it's done in like 15-20 minutes, and you'll know one way or another if your settings, what worked out. Well, that's what I was doing. I thought I had my printer set up. I discovered that test just gets you close. There's a much longer test called the cones of calibration that I have discovered is absolutely essential to setting up printers. It does a shear test in addition to an exposure test. And one side of the cones of calibration is meant to fail, and the other side is meant to print correctly and turn out looking a certain way. So if your failure side prints correctly, your correct success side won't, and that's wrong. You've got things really backwards. If you have partial success, on one or the other, you could find out the way that you're going. You need to adjust your settings. So what I discovered was I basically had my shear settings wrong, and I had my exposure time wrong. I was underexposing the prints, which increases the detail that you get, a little bit of crispness, but also can make things a little too sharp. The layer lines can be a little bit more prominent, and in my case, I had things failing. So once I ran that test, I got my printers dialed in, and now basically I use one type of resin, and my settings are all the same. I've been tweaking them a little bit here and there, just trying some different things recently. But I put those in. I'll make something. If you want to do this paper clip, I'd stick it on the build plate and I'd hit go, and I would be surprised if it didn't print. In fact, what would be a failure in my mind would be if I didn't support it correctly. So we have a pretty smooth running system right now. What will happen, though, is a printer will start to act up. And that sounds funny because they're just machines. Once you've set them up, what can happen. So for those of you who don't know, there are several wear and tear items that you will go through in a printer. The number one thing that you'll eat up is what's called the FEP, F-E-P. This is the vat. There's a vat that you dump resin into, and it has a clear bottom, and that bottom is a piece of plastic called FEP, and it should be super tight like the head of a drum. It moves, but it allows the light to go through for the exposure, and this thing gets smushed down, pulled up, smushed and pulled thousands and thousands of times, and they have a lifespan on them. My printers actually have a counter for when they recommend that you replace the FEP. I've discovered that if I take really good care of them, they will last beyond the recommended replacement time, but I start to have problems with the prints. They start to turn out funny. So when things go sideways, I know now I don't have a setting problem. I probably have a mechanical problem, and it's probably the FEP. The next thing that I have issues with, especially when I'm like, I just replaced that FEP, or it's got a low number of hours on it, it's fine, and it's starting to print funny, or I have a print failure, is leveling. So the print plate that your prints stick to when you're done, it has to be level with the bottom of the FEP. And what I mean by level, I actually mean justified against it. Your printer can be crooked and willy wonky on the table, but as long as those two planes are perfectly parallel to one another, you'll have a successful print, assuming there's enough resin where it needs to be. So what will happen is that'll get a little bit off. So one side will lift up more than the other, or it'll start to separate. And that's a mechanical adjustment. And I've always kind of been like, well, why would it come out of level? I don't mess with it. There's a whole bunch of screws and clips and stuff in my machines. Or if you have the ball type, you crank it on there. Why would that change? And I think what happens is there's tiny stresses that we don't perceive and the machine doesn't care about, and they don't affect the print, that are being imposed on that build plate. And over time, it results in something coming out of tolerance just enough that you start to have problems. And so you have to stop what you're doing, and you have to level the build plate. The other thing I think I want to mention, I started off with a bunch of different resins, and I settled on one that does everything we need. The detail that you guys have come to enjoy and appreciate, and I'm like, this is what I want, this is what I want to see, doesn't work with every resin, or at least it didn't used to. They've started to normalize resin formulas. They're very similar now to one another. There's a lot of talk out there that that you should buy the cheapest resin you can because it's the same thing as the most expensive resin out there. I don't know about that. It mostly is, but there are still some differences. I think the big thing though is to stick to a resin so that you eliminate your guesswork and maximize the amount of printing that you're doing. That being said, I still have one other resin. So I run two resins right now. I run a gray that you guys are familiar with, and then I run a clear. And that clear resin is for the canopies for the airplanes. And I have a design made up for the Wildcats, or sorry, the Hellcats, by the way, but they're not ready to print. I mean, I've printed test prints. There's a whole bunch of adjusting that needs to take place to get them to come out right. So those of you who are working on a later war or mid-war Intrepid class, or not Intrepid class, sorry, Yorktown class aircraft carrier, we are getting to those. So please be patient. They are coming. But I do print the canopies. And so that's kind of a bummer because I got to go from gray to crystal clear, which means I need to, as perfectly as possible, clean the vat out, put in the clear, get it going, get my prints done, and then when I'm done, we switch back. So having 5 printers streamlines this whole process immensely, and that's just part of, I guess, talking about our production system that we have going on here. That being said, I want to talk a little bit about shipping. My wife's like, way to be passive aggressive. I'm not being passive. I'm being aggressive. Thank you to everyone who knows where you live. I do appreciate that. There, I said it. Every so often, someone messes up their address, their shipping address. They either fat finger the numbers, or they've just moved, so they put half of their old address and half of the new address in haste, or they've moved and it autocorrects to the old address and they're not aware of it. I know it's an accident. I know nobody means to do that, but it causes a major headache, especially when you inform me about it after I've boxed up your part and put it in the mail. Because now that part is going somewhere. It may, if depending on how far off your address is and how good your post office is, it may still get to you. So far, my experience in Canada is that the Canadian Postal Service, I don't know what is wrong with you people up there. If you're off by one digit, one house number, this happened to a guy. He was off by one house number, and he was the only house at the end of the street, and his number was off by one. The guy returned it. The post office like, no, address not found, unknown. It's got his name, everything else is right. Anyway, so that's kind of a bummer. We were having a lot of trouble with international orders, especially to the UK. So what happens is the United States Post Office ships it over to the United Kingdom, and then the wonderful United Kingdom Postal Service takes over. That is what happens. And those of you in the UK, you're probably already groaning. You know how that can be. Fortunately, I've made a change to what we do here. So we print your labels out, and there's a barcode that just gets scanned in addition to your address being on the label. I've started, so they're like a heat transfer type of deal, and if you scratch them and bang them around, you can mess up that label. So what I've started doing is taping over the barcode and the address. The customs forms and all that junk, hey, let the government figure that out. But your address and that barcode, I've started taping over. And since having done that, we've had very little trouble with international orders. That's not stopped the Canadian Post Office from messing things up, but definitely in the UK and Europe, things have improved dramatically. So I don't know if the tape was the solution or coincidentally things have improved. Regardless, I'm going to keep taping over that stuff for international orders. Here in the United States, because it saves tape and tape's expensive, I don't do that. I just throw it in the mail and it goes right to your house. So for some reason, it's not a problem domestically, but it is a problem with international orders. So yeah, please continue to make sure your address is right. It causes major headaches here when that happens because, so first off, it messes up our computer system. It gets confused. I don't know where anyone lives. Believe it or not, I don't know where you live. So you have to put in your address and your shipping address, your billing address, and all that stuff. And when you put that in, it goes into our computer system, and the information you provided us creates this little contact info thing for you. So we have to go in and change that, and then we have to go in and make sure that it changes. It still works with when it prints out your shipping address, that is correct now. And then there's the whole ordeal of, did your package go out the door already? Sometimes we can catch it and we can rip it open. The problem that we have is, if I print a shipping label, I cannot cancel the shipping label. And I cannot undo the charge for that shipping label. So if you're in the UK, I pay $20-some to ship to you, US. And if you screw up and we get a thing like that, I'm going to end up invoicing you for $20 more, because the only way to get a new label now is to buy another one. And the post office does this because, it makes sense. I print off the label. Oh, whoops, I messed it up. Well, but the label still exists. I could stick it on the box and it's going to go for free now to where it's supposed to go. So, yeah, they don't let you refund it once you've printed it. So there is a point of no return. I could generate a shipping label, and I've done this before, realize there's a problem, I can cancel it, say it's the wrong address or whatever, and the post office knows you haven't printed it yet, and you're able to go ahead and get another one. So, yeah, when that's wrong, we lose hours over one little box because we have to sit down in front of the computer and figure out why. We have to go to the post office and track it down, the package, if we even can. If it's gone, we have to wait for it to ship to wherever you are, then be returned back. Usually it comes back smashed in a bunch of pieces, unless it's from Germany. The Germans are very good about not destroying property. But the UK, Canada, and the United States Post Office, they like to smash things along with the rest of Europe. And it takes a very long time for it to come back. So then I don't know if you've gotten the package in the meantime, or if it's lost. We can look at the tracking. Yeah, it gets sticky is what happens there. Tracking is another thing. We've had people reach out to us and say, the tracking says the package was delivered. Oh, I didn't get it. Do something. And I realize that's a natural reaction. You go to the people who sent it to you. We do not own the post office. I do not own the United States Post Office. In fact, I hate to say this, but if I did own and run the United States Post Office, I probably wouldn't be doing the Midwest Model Shop, and I probably wouldn't be making videos. I'd probably be running the post office because that's a bigger thing. Once we take a package and we put it in the mail and we drop it off, just like you in your country, wherever you live, it's out of your hands. There's nothing you can do about it anymore, and there's nothing we can do about it anymore. That's why we provide you with a tracking number, and that's why it's important that you have a valid email address. I've noticed that too. Some people don't put good email addresses up because they'll reach out to me looking for their package, and I'll say, well, here's the tracking number. Why didn't you look at it? Well, I never got the tracking number. Well, then I look and I see that the email that they've provided and now the email they're communicating me with are different, or something's wrong. When you buy something, you'll get a confirmation of your order. You'll get a notification that we've processed it. You'll get a notification of when the post office has received it, and then where it's going at that point. So please make sure your stuff works. Because then you're able to track things. If your post office delivers something to the wrong place, you need to go ahead and contact them to figure it out. We can't We can't do anything about it. Part of the reason I am the way I am about this stuff is we have had, not too many, but a handful of attempted scammers. People who want stuff for free. And I speak to friends and people who are in similar lines of work where they're selling something online, they're shipping it, and there are people out there all the time trying to get something for free or claiming that they didn't get something. Or in our case, what happened a lot was they break the resin part, attempting to remove it or cut it or whatever they're doing during the build, they break it. And so then they very quickly send an email to us saying that they have the part showed up broken and the mail was all damaged. Give me another one. Well, on a few occasions, it has shown up damaged in the mail, again with the post office. And when that takes place, two things happen. One, always, 100% of the time, the person who said, hey, Ben and Nora, my part showed up broken, here it is. There's a picture provided in the box, and it's, somebody stepped on it, and it's a mess, and there it is. So that's the first thing that happens. Second thing that happens is we mail them another part immediately. Do the best we can, and we have to write that off. The other type of person, though, what they do is they say, hey, Ben, my part showed up broken in the mail, and I need another one. And I say, oh, no, that's terrible, totally sympathetic, I understand. And then I'm like, could you please provide a picture of the damaged part in the mail so we could take a look at it? That's what I'll do. And we won't hear from them. Usually 3 or 4 days later, what will happen instead is that same person will place another order for the exact same thing. They broke their part. And that happens, which is why I do the videos showing you how to remove them. If I can't remove them, how are you going to remove them? And I don't, like these, you probably can't see this. This is, I'm going to bring this up to the camera. I know I said I wasn't going to show anything that you need to see. All right. See these figures? These are from North Star. They were in the Ukraine. I don't know what their situation is anymore. These are the best 1/200 scale 3D figures I'd ever seen, but look at them. They're all right together next to each other. And the bottom's just a solid mess. So that solid mess is why I go out of my way to, like on our figure set that we just released, make sure everything's on an individual pad that's well supported, that's easy for you to get cutters in and paint and remove. Because these were, I only have so many of these laying around. These were super expensive, $55, $65, something like that, plus shipping. And then they took like 6 or 7 months to show up. It was awful. But the product was mostly amazing, except that I couldn't get them off of the supports. Some of the stuff online that's available through these Facebook groups, same thing. They showed up. I'm like, wow, these are amazing looking prints. But they're in that super hard orange resin. So you pretty much have to have a hot knife. And then even then, it's dicey whether or not you're gonna get it off without damaging something. So I've made a lot of test prints that I finally got rid of it. I had a box, I think I talked about it for a while ago, of the crane set when I was developing the crane set. A box of rejected cranes. They would just break. They'd fall apart. They didn't print right. I mean, we really went all out on trying to make it so that you could successfully remove them from the sprues. And they are the best that I can make them. They're just, certain elements are super fragile. There's no working around that. And I can't make them too tall because they'll take a long time to print. And if I make them too tall, they actually become more fragile, and you're going to have more trouble removing them. But at a minimum, the point is, I try to demonstrate that I should be able to remove them. And I've accepted, Nora keeps telling me this, and she just says, not everybody has your skill set, Ben. Okay, fine. Maybe certain things for me are easier than everybody else. So I have to make sure that it's as easy for me as I possibly can get it to be before I release something. That's the intent, so that you guys have a good product experience, and all that, just takes a long time. So shop projects here. What are we doing? So this channel's evolved a little bit. We used to just do big ships, and I started off with airplanes, and we started doing that again. I want to. So I am a completionist. Completionist. I think that's what my stepson says. With the exception being so far the USS Smith, which is sitting over there. I need to wrap it up. I don't like not finishing models. I have this problem with that. But I don't want to start a 2-year, year and a half long project and be like, well, that's all we're working on, and I refuse to touch anything else until that's done. So that's why we kind of have this mishmash of things going on right now. I was talking to my buddy John. I said, I know I haven't done a video on the Enterprise in 2 months, an official build video. But in the last 2 months, I feel like I've been working on the Enterprise all of the time. And that's because we had to come up with the TBF Avengers, all the products for the inside of the ship that we've got, and now the Navy figures, and now the test print just finished over there, the 1/200 scale officers and gunner set. There should be enough gunners in there for 10 quad 40 millimeter enclosures, and then a whole bunch of the guys walking around, the dudes on the 20 millimeter Oerlikon cannons. Need to see how that print turned out after this video, and then we'll release them. So look for those on the website here shortly. But that has taken an exorbitant amount of my time, and so we did the Zokamura video. I want to get back into that. I'm ready to move on to the next step. Probably spend a week or so on that. The Duchess of Kingston. I want to talk about the Duchess of Kingston for a minute. First of all, I love that kit, if you don't know already. It's by Vanguard Models in the UK. Absolutely amazing. If you live in the UK or Europe, please buy it directly from him. If you live in Canada, United States, Australia, anywhere else, check his website and then check a couple others. There is a United States distributor, and depending on the value of the dollar and the value of the pound, some days you're better off buying it from the UK, even here in the United States. And some days you're better off buying it here in the U.S. depending on availability. So just do a little bit of shopping around. Save yourself, 10, 20 bucks one way or another. So I love this ship. This is an incredible ship. It's going together extremely well. Here, sneak peek. We've got the mass in place now for real. And we're moving on seriously into the rigging. So I've really enjoyed this. It scratches several itches for me. Woodworking, specifically, using some nice hand tools. Ships, old sailing ships that I just think are fascinating. Doing the rigging, painting all the colors. There's all these. You get to dip your toes in a lot of different pools with a wooden ship kit. So that's why I do it. The videos have done poorly on YouTube. Believe it or not, most of you just have no interest in it, and that's fine. I like it, so I'm still going to do it. I'm still going to do the wooden ships. People on Patreon, that's why they're over there. They've really been receptive of that, and we do appreciate everyone's support over in Patreon. We're not looking for money. That's why the Patreon account is $1. It's $1 a month if you want to sign up. That's the lowest amount I was allowed to put in there. They wouldn't take less than that. And I don't charge more than that. If you want to donate more, that's up to you. I created Patreon because I was getting, believe it or not, pressured into creating Patreon several years ago. I was getting constant emails about, look, I don't want, and this was before the membership thing existed on YouTube. I didn't want to do anything like that, and all these people are like, we want to donate to you and your cause and what you're doing. Please set up a Patreon. And I was like, really self-conscious about accepting money just because. Now I realize I am providing something, I guess. I believe. You've said so. I'm providing knowledge and a service and direction to you. That's the point of the channel. But I'm just doing it. I don't need or want you to give me money for it. But people feel when you want to thank someone, you want to express your thanks. I've realized, there's different ways to do that. And some people, they want to give you some money. It's like that's obviously it has value. It's tangible, and they would like to give it to you. They appreciate what you're doing. They appreciate what we're doing. And so we set up Patreon, and of course, then I felt guilty. Like, well, these people are now donating to me. They should get something extra. At least in my mind, that's how I felt. So that's why the Duchess went up on Patreon way in advance. And that's what's basically going to happen. Several builds here are going to appear on Patreon first, moving forward. And then they will come to regular YouTube later on, mostly. There's a couple of builds. There's a few videos on Patreon that will stay on Patreon, and that's it. Those of you on Patreon are the only ones who are going to see it. Just because. What we did this summer, though, obviously, is we released the Duchess of Kingston on regular YouTube. That was to satisfy the YouTube algorithm. That was a plan. Every year, every summer, I do summertime things, and I do other projects, and there's things around the house Nora wants taken care of, and trips, and outside, and everything, and sitting downstairs all day and building models in the shop is not at the top of the list. And these days on YouTube, if you're not putting a video out consistently, your numbers and reviews and watch time tanks. I mean, it bombs bad. So I wanted to have something that I could routinely put out. And I had, 14 episodes, I think, at that point of the Duchess of Kingston sitting. Patreon had all watched it. And I thought, I'm just going to release this once a week. So there's a video that's there that's always coming out, so we fill that little gap. That was a strategic move on my part, because when I release new products, I do the video for them usually, and that's how you all find out about it. If you don't have the bell icon clicked so you get alert when I put out a new video, if you're just subscribed, which I understand, there's no pressure to do anything more than subscribe, or you don't have to subscribe if you don't want to, you won't hear about the video. And let me explain that to you. I watch YouTube all the time, and there's a whole bunch of channels that I watch religiously every single day, or as often as they put videos out. There's one channel in particular, the guy puts out a video every day. I always watch the video every day. It's part of my routine. I click the like. If I skip a day, on occasion, he will put out a video. I'm like, I don't care about it. I'm not going to watch this. And I ignore it. The next day, his next video will not appear in my feed. It will not appear in my recommended videos. It's just not there. YouTube has suddenly decided that because I didn't like the video he put out on Monday and I didn't watch it, they're just not even going to show me his video that's amazing on Tuesday. I have no idea why they're doing that. But so then what I do is I go to his channel, because I'm like, why didn't I get to see his video today? There it is. It's amazing, and I watch it, and I like it, and I give it a thumbs up. And then on Wednesday, there it is. I open up my feed, and there's his next video. It's rearing and ready to go. So if I don't consistently put out material, if you all don't consistently watch it, or even if you just start it and give it a thumbs up, that's huge. When something comes out that you do want to see that I do, you may not get notified about it unless you have the bell icon selected. It's just one of those weird things that YouTube's doing. I don't like it. I wish, my intention, like I've subscribed to a lot of channels. My thought was, if I subscribe to these channels, then my recommended feed and my regular YouTube feed that I scroll through will be a video from every one of those channels, right? The new stuff or something I haven't watched. Maybe that was true once upon a time. That's definitely not how it works now, and that aggravates me because it's like I'm trying to create a playlist of videos that I'm interested in from content creators that I enjoy, and you're missing out. So you almost just have to. So that's what I do. Every once in a while, I click that little button that says subscriptions and bring them all up, and there'll be a little dot next to each one if they have a video I haven't seen, and I'll go to them and I'll open them up and I'll go through and I'll watch the videos. So a little bit of a tangent there, but yeah, that was the point of the Duchess of Kingston in terms of how the videos have come out. So we're in the final stages of the build. So what's going to happen now is I'm trying to wrap it up. So those videos will appear on, still going to be on Patreon first, well in advance of coming out on YouTube, and then they'll come out on YouTube. And then what has also been nice about working ahead on that is that they're there and ready to go, and then I can go ahead and work on other projects, like the Enterprise, which now I'm excited about because we have the airplanes for the inside, all the little details for the inside, enough that I'm happy and there's some visual interest. So the next episode is going to be about painting up all that stuff and posing it and putting it inside of the aircraft carrier hangar bay. Then we could start with the structure that goes in the ceiling of the hangar bay, which is also part of the support for the main deck. So we could come up with the rest of the ship and, yeah, start to move forward on all that. I'm excited about that part of the build. I'm going to work on another sailing ship after this. We're going to do the Saucy Jack. This is from the Vanguard models as well. It's a beginner kit. It's a fishing boat. It's much smaller than the Duchess. It should go fairly quickly. I want to do it because I bought it because I think it looks cool. It's a beginner kit. It's an affordable kit. If you're going to go down this road, you're probably going to start with one of those ships as well. Not the Duchess or a lot of the more advanced stuff that he has. And so I want to build it so that you could see, or if you have it in your stash, you have a little guide for what to do and how it should go together, what are some of the pitfalls, and what are some of the gotchas. The other thing I wanted to comment about, I think every single one of you should at least buy and start a wooden boat kit, ship kit of some sort, especially if you're a plastic model builder. Why do I say that? So years ago, prior to my first ship, if a part was missing from a model, if a part broke, especially if it's a critical part, I was like, oh, it's over. I mean, just throw the whole thing in the trash. There's no recovering from this. Back then, especially, I did not know how to get a hold of the manufacturers to even write them a letter. I couldn't even fathom what to do to try and get a replacement part. Fast forward, I did a ton of research on wooden ships and decided I was going to take the plunge and build one. I built plastic ships, and I didn't like that when you tried to rig them, the plastic spars and everything would bend and move. And I was like, if they're made out of wood, they're going to be a lot more robust. You can put a little pressure on them so that your line gets taut, looks real, and it's not all bendy and falling apart, etc., etc. So I built my first kit. And it's the, not the Katie and Norfolk. I did build that one eventually. It's the, I named it Gun Runner. It's the Armed Virginia Sloop. That's what it's called, the Armed Virginia Sloop. And in there, I was fascinated because they would say, go get this block of wood out of your kit. So I get this little block of wood. And then it would say, carve it to look like this shape, this object, and then install it here. I was just like, what do you mean just carve it? Like, okay, I've got my hobby knife and I've got files and I've got, this is before I was really into woodworking and I didn't have a lot of the skills, and so I started. I'm like, well, I want my model to look like this. This is what it should look like. I just dove in and I started to figure it out. Finished the ship, loved it, it was great. Fast forward, I get another model kit, a plastic model kit. It was an airplane or something. A piece broke or was missing or flew off into the carpet monster and got eaten whole, and it was gone. And my immediate reaction was, well, I'll just build another one. I'll just make another one. I've got styrene stock, and I know what it's supposed to look like. And yeah, I could just put it together. No problem. That's easy. And I did. And I fixed the solution. And then I was proud. I would compare it to the kit part to my part. And can you tell which one's which? This is all before YouTube. It took my modeling to a new level. It added a skill set that I didn't know I have. It's kind of like those of you who hate algebra or no good at algebra. Algebra is the worst thing in the world. If you take an algebra class and you do your best to get through it and you're struggling and it's over with, you're like, oh, finally I'm done with that. And then I go back to, divide 120 by 26. And you're like, oh, long division? Psh, piece of cake. And that's kind of like what the deal is. It is harder. It's a big challenge. It causes your mind to work in a different way. You're not just following the instructions and putting things together. You're doing some actual creating from scratch. And you're revitalizing certain neurons and pathways in your brain that might have been asleep, might be a little out of practice, or you may have never used it. And here you suddenly have this opportunity to expand your modeling skills and horizons. So that's something that made a big difference for me, and that's why I encourage all of you to do it. All of my wingnut wing kits I built, they originally had wooden propellers. So they give you a very nice propeller in the kit, and you got to paint it like wood. I am not, well, until recently, I was terrible at making plastic parts look like wood parts. I just couldn't get the paint process down right. I didn't have a technique. So I decided that instead of screwing up this plastic piece and making it look crappy with paint, I would just skip that and I would carve a wooden propeller. I would laminate some little pieces together to get the alternating light dark, and I would just carve it out, and then the hub of the propeller that's this plastic with all the nuts and bolts on, I'll just cut that out of the kit propeller and glue it onto my wood propeller and stick it on my wingnut wing kits. And that's what I did. If you look at them, you're like, man, that's a really good looking propeller. Nice paint job there. It's not a paint job. I could not paint it. I did not have the skills that some of you have when it comes to painting wood and making it look good. I don't have those skills. I had to cheat and carve a wooden one instead. That's how I made it work. And then you cover it in like a gloss clear so that you can put your decals on it, and then you cover those one more time, and it looks like the real thing. That's how I got away with that. But those skills came directly from building wooden ship kits. So I hope that some of you take an interest in wooden ship kits. I hope some of you take a look at the Duchess of Kingston build, and especially because Vanguard models, you can see the instructions online of the kits, so you know what you're getting into. The plan sheets aren't there, but the instructions are. And then I'm trying to do these videos to show you, kind of the process. That's the idea. So anyway, I think that's mostly what I wanted to talk about in this episode. I know it's a little longer. I hope you enjoyed it. Please feel free to comment down below. Please like and subscribe. Please at least give this a thumbs up. That really helps YouTube share. In fact, that's the last thing I want to talk about. I rely completely on all of you now when it comes to just you watching. If I release a new video, it will go to all of your feeds, sort of. Like I mentioned before, if you haven't watched me in a while, it's probably not going to show up. But if you get the notification, if you come to the channel and you watch our videos, what happens is if enough of you watch them, my subscribers, YouTube says, well, Ben's subscribers have watched these videos, a lot of them, so maybe some other people would like it. And then they start to recommend that video that you've all watched to someone who's never seen our channel before at all. That's how the channel grows. I think it's a terrible system. I think YouTube has worked themselves into the corner a little bit in terms of everyone in the world, just about, if you have a cell phone, you can have a YouTube channel. You can, if you have an iPhone or an Android, you can record yourself on this directly to YouTube. It won't be edited necessarily, but you could put a channel up just like that. And so now, how do you share that exposure? You know, how do you create your own playlist for the things that you want to watch as a viewer of YouTube? Yeah, it's dicey, right? So anyway, Nora and I appreciate your support. We appreciate all the patrons. We appreciate everyone who watches our channel and comments. We appreciate every thumbs up. We appreciate every order that we've received. And yeah, just a lot of kind words and emails have come and messages over the last few years. And it means a lot to us. It means that what we're doing is the right thing. And we want to continue doing that and continue providing good products and videos that are fun to watch. Model building's supposed to be fun, and you're supposed to enjoy it. I want to continue to make it enjoyable and fun, and a lot of you have expressed that you can't anymore, so you build vicariously through me on these builds. Okay, that's fine. Let's build some epic models together then, right? Let's go ahead and keep doing that. All right, folks, thank you very much. Really appreciate you. We'll see you next time.